My name's Max and this is Neville. Today we're in Wiltshire to steal a ride on the bike that killed the two-stroke. We're also going to find out if this two-stroke killer still has what it takes to defeat a modern day smoker. It's going to be a fun one. Let's get to it.
It's golden, my man. It don't actually sound so sick when you lay on the power. Got like a different sound to it, I think. You're just twisting it and it's just such a like a bang. That was great.
The Yamaha YZ400F is the bike that killed the two-stroke, and here's why. Back in the mid-90s, the dirt bike world was dominated by two-strokes. Although it has to be said that the landscape was changing somewhat. In both America and Europe, the 500cc class was steadily losing its spot at the pinnacle of the sport. In fact, after the 1993 season, the AMA completely scrapped the 500cc class, and over in Europe, the more accessible to the masses 250cc class was, with its more rideable machines, becoming the premier series on the Grand Prix stage. Perhaps these massive shifts in the landscape after such a long period of status quo were omens and premonitions of things to come. But nevertheless, during the 90s, it's safe to say that two-strokes most definitely ruled the roost. They dominated the show, with riders and teams choosing to stick with the lighter, easier to maintain machines. And this is despite the fact that four-stroke engines have been around for quite some time. The four-bang is reviewed by the masses as just being categorically uncompetitive at the professional level. However, the first seeds of change were planted back in 1996 when the AMA announced a new rule change that would allow four-stroke machines of up to 550cc to race alongside and against 252 strokes. This may seem trivial to us now, but back then this was earth-shattering. At this time, the AMA also announced a second, even more radical new ruling that would perhaps, unwittingly to them, change the sport forever. The American Motorcycle Association has always implemented a homologation rule that basically means that any machine used at a pro-level motocross or supercross event needs to be available in its basic form to anybody on the gate and anybody watching at home. You can run fancy parts and bolt-ons to improve the performance and safety, but the base machine must be a mass production bike. There are loads of different and long-winded criteria that a bike needs to meet these homologation rules. Essentially, there needs to be 400 machines in the country being sold at US dealerships. That's why you never saw any of that factory exotica that came out of the GPs back in the day hitting up the US Supercross series. In 1996, however, the AMA decided to completely tear up the rulebook and allow works bikes to race in the American Motocross and Supercross Championships. But here's the catch. These bikes were only allowed to race for one season and they had to be four-stroke machines. Coincidentally, at this time, Yamaha were already working on a prototype four-stroke machine for Doug Henry to race in 1997. A handy little coincidence for the boys in blue. It turns out that Yamaha actually lobbied quite hard for these rule changes to come to fruition, and surprisingly, the AMA complied. In order to aid the evolution of the four-stroke motocross bike, which as we said at this time was seen as being completely uncompetitive, the AMA granted Yamaha's wish, which allowed them and the rest of the big five manufacturers to go away and develop works machines. Yamaha engineer Yoshiharu Nakayama is credited as being the dude behind this movement. He truly believed it was possible to develop a four-stroke machine that was capable of bringing it to Team Two-Stroke. The Yamaha engineers calculated that a four-stroke engine needed 1.6 times the power of a two-stroke motor, which is where the 400cc's came from. They were desperately trying to keep weight down whilst providing equal power. In 1997, Yamaha unveiled the YZ400M, the prototype for their first mass-production four-stroke machine, and the bike that Doug Henry would take to the Las Vegas Supercross finale that same year. It's hard to confirm for sure, but it's speculated that Doug Henry's YZM400 was worth $500,000, which if you didn't know is absolutely ludicrous for a motocross bike. On May 17, 1997, Doug Henry claimed the main event win at the Las Vegas Supercross finale, which was the first ever win in the AMA competition for a four-stroke machine. And with that, Doug Henry and Yamaha initiated a four-stroke wave in a sea of two-strokes that just could not be stopped. The next year, the YZM, which was the prototype bike, became available to the world as the YZ400F. Now, upon first inspection, this bike may not quite seem like the bringer of the apocalypse to the two-stroke world. I mean, it was 20 pounds overweight compared to its two-stroke competition. But the initial tests and reviews were positive. People liked it, and Yamaha only improved things with the YZ426, which came in 2001. In the summer of 1998, after claiming the 250cc outdoor national title, Doug Henry became the first ever person to win an AMA championship using a four-stroke machine. The YZ400F had changed the world. Four strokes were now competitive, and the two-stroke versus four-stroke battle was just beginning. Within a decade, four strokes had won the war against their two-stroke rivals. The dirt bike world was now a four-stroke utopia. The factory teams and riders had all made the switch, and the race series were changing their names to match. In Europe, the 250cc class became MX1, and over in America, the 125 classes became the Lights. By 2006, almost every champion in motocross was a four-stroke pilot. Within 15 years of the AMA's bombshell announcement, 3 of the 4 Japanese giants, that's Honda, Suzuki and Kawasaki, had all ceased production on their two-stroke motocross bikes. Ironically, Yamaha are the only Japanese manufacturer still producing two-stroke motocross machines, although they haven't been developed much at all since 2005. All of that started with the Yamaha YZF 400, and today we're going to ride it. I've got my pro rider friend Neville Bradshaw with me today to give us a professional insight. As some of you may know, Nev is a two-stroke fanatic, much like myself, so it's going to be interesting to get his views on the bike that ended the two-stroke era. He's also very experienced of riding bikes of a similar age, so he's going to be able to mentally compare the YZF 400 against the bikes that it would have been up against back in the day. Finally, Nev is super consistent, so he's the perfect rider for a stopwatch race. At the end of this video, Nev is going to be doing 2 hot laps, one on his modern day YZ125 and one on the YZ400 4-stroke. We're doing this to see whether this two-stroke killer still has what it takes to defeat a modern day smoker. Stay tuned to find out whether the victor of the day is going to be team 2-stroke or team 4-stroke. Comment below your guesses of which bike you think is going to be faster. Now that story time's over, let's head to the track and get riding, shall we? Here we go, here's the beast.
Ugly, isn't it?
Do you reckon the only one in the country?
Possibly now, yeah. I don't know. We'll find out, won't we?
Yeah, well, when this video goes out, I'm sure there'll be some people piping up.
I don't know, mate.
Come and have a look, close-up look.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite slim when you sit on it.
It is original, eh? Wow.
Yeah, if you want to change any of that, you can. But
I should be closing up, I'd say.
yeah.
I so much more prefer the feel of the older bikes though, like the actual seating position.
Yeah.
You sit more into them, don't you?
Yeah.
Sort of feeling, isn't
Yeah.
it? Mate, she's still fresh, eh? Fair play.
Oh, it is, yeah. It's done
You
about
can-
5 or 6 hours.
You can feel like when a bike's still new, eh?
Yeah.
That is cool, man.
Looking forward to having a go then, Nev.
I am, yeah. I am. He's got a big smile on his face, can't you tell?
Alright dude, go for it. You about to go back 20 years?
Yeah, boy.
22 years, I reckon.
Gonna get it started first.
Oh.
The decompressor is started. Nice, that's cool. That's me.
Yeah, boy!
He's running.
Oh man, let's go for it!
Get it warmed up first, bro. You don't want to shoot yourself, do you?
Definitely not.
Sounds quite nice, eh? Like it hasn't got like that misfire type of sound that I thought it would have.
Smooth. Yeah, smooth.
Check it out.
Let's do this. Enjoy, mate. saying, dude?
Yeah, it's pretty sick, eh? It sounds good. It's a nice bike to ride.
It sounds loud, mate, from over here.
I don't think it's that loud. Like riding it, you don't get that feel that it's super loud.
No, I reckon it's like 106 decibels.
It turns quite nice because it's so heavy. So you can actually turn it quite good because it's got traction where it's quite heavy.
What about speed-wise?
Yeah, it's like quite nice. It's like quite smooth the power, like super smooth, but it hasn't got like a lot of it compared to like a modern 450. Yeah, I feel comfortable. Like these old bikes, I seem to feel good straight away. Like the heaviness of the bike makes you get so much traction and it makes you turn a lot easier. I think that's a lot different to what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like real heavy feeling, and remember you always used to get that like pop, 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 pop. It doesn't do that.
Dude, that is golden, my man.
It's smooth, isn't it? It's such a smooth power lobe, and I just love the heavy feel of the turning. Like you can just turn it, it's like you're on rails.
Right then, Nev, just finished a few sessions on the 1998 Yamaha YZ 400F. What do you reckon? Were you surprised? What's the first reactions to the bike?
Yeah, I was quite surprised, you know, first of all to see the bike that old in the condition like it is.
Yeah,
It's,
brand
you know,
spanking new basically when we got it
that's
this
the
morning.
first thing I actually noticed on the bike. The first laps I did, it felt like a brand new bike. You know, everything was tight, original grips, you know, the handlebars are original, like brakes are sweet. So that was quite cool. And then, you know, like I was kind of thinking you're going to get on it, and from what I can remember riding one back in 1998, I can remember letting the gas off and having like loads of engine braking, and then also like popping all the time. Like it was just sounded like a bag of nails when it was going around. But this bike, I don't know if it's jetted differently or something, but you know, it was nice and smooth. Like I didn't really feel the engine braking around the turns. On the jumps I felt a little bit, but like no popping and banging, just sweet, you know, like very smooth, straight off the power straight away. You know, I was quite surprised at how much power it actually had. Like but no, it felt awesome, to be honest.
Starting wise, it took a few kicks to get it going to start with, but after that it was golden.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. You know, obviously that's one thing in those days, you know, people used to lose laps, you know, kind of like once the bike had stalled, that was it type of thing, you know. Once I got the hang of it, started first click pretty much every time, didn't it? Yeah. Didn't even use the hot start, just decompressor, had a couple of clicks to get it going, and then one proper kick. I think, you know, what I was saying earlier, a lot of people have learned how to start the 4-stroke now and have got the knack of it, and I think that's something where people came from riding 252 strokes and 125s. It's a completely different way of starting the 4-stroke, so maybe that's one of the factors why they were so hard to start. But yeah, this thing fired up first click.
So obviously at home you've got a 98 CR500, right?
Yeah.
This is 98 400. You've ridden some 250s of the same era as well. How would you compare this bike to those bikes that would be going up against back in the day?
It's hard to say really. Like on a track like we're riding today, there's like almost no comparison, you know. What I really liked about this bike was how heavy, like it doesn't feel heavy when you're riding, but it's obviously a little bit heavier than the normal bikes. But with it being a 4-stroke, like the bike almost turned itself. You got so much traction to the ground, whether the gas is on or off. Like the engine braking makes you get traction halfway through like into the corners, and then when you roll the gas on, it's so smooth and you got so much traction, where on the 2-stroke you always like sliding into turns and sliding out of corners, you know. So on the 252 stroke, definitely, you know, just the power to the ground there's no comparison, you know. Like I'd say the 500, the power would be quite similar, like coming up some of the hills, you know. I'd say the 500 power would be quite similar to that, but definitely against the 252 stroke, that's got the legs, you know, 100%.
When this bike came out, it was probably 20 pounds heavier than the 252 strokes it was racing against. Did you feel that out on the track today? Did you feel like it was a bit of a lump, that it was heavy, or not really?
The only time I felt it was when I made a mistake. Like if I made a mistake and then I try to pull the bike back, that's the only time I felt it. But you know, I think on a track like today it was actually beneficial, where you need heaviness, you know. I think that's why it felt like it had so much traction today, because the bike was a bit heavier. But you know, it felt normal to me, like scrubbing the jumps. I guess I've been riding I've been riding my 500 for the last 3 or 4 months, so that's a heavy bike on its own. But scrubbing the jumps, turning, you can feel the heaviness a little bit, like when you jump off of something, like there's a downhill jump here, when you let the gas off at the engine braking, feel the heaviness, but through the turns and stuff you can't really feel it.
And what about top speed on this bike? Do you think, were you going up through the gearbox quickly, or?
You know, like on a modern 450 you could quite quickly get into trouble with that like instant throttle, where this, you can ride this bike super hard and it's got that like little bit of a delay, and it, you know, like it just keeps building, like gradually keeps building through the power band, instead of that big hit and that long over rev, you know. Like it's a lot broader power, like I felt like. Yeah, I was super surprised. I was expecting like a big bang and then nothing, you know, like kind of how the bikes were. But this was like really mellow off the bottom and just kind of kept like gradually building through the power.
As we're saying in this video, this is kind of the bike that killed the two-stroke. Can you see how that happened? Like going from this to the 426 and then how this technology transformed motocross?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you compare this to, you know, say like a 1998 CR250, you know, like on the right track, I think the biggest thing is the traction and the torque. You know, like with the Supercross and stuff where you needed that torque to get the triples and stuff. So I think as a starting point, you know, like it's actually quite incredible, you know, like if you look at it, this bike's not like far off, you know, what we're riding these days, and it's, what is it, how old is it now?
22 years old.
22 years old, you know, so you can definitely see how that transformation happened with, you know, riders going from the two-stroke.
The last 2 points that we haven't touched on yet. Firstly, what were the brakes like on this 22-year-old bike? What did you feel like that?
The brakes came in good. Like when I first got on the bike, I think it was been sitting for quite a while. Like I was like, Jesus, the front brake didn't even work. But like the back brake was unreal. Like the back brake was so good. Like better than, like I don't know how, but it is like better than most of the bikes I've ridden in the last couple of years. They just needed warming up. I think the brakes just needed, where the bike hasn't been ridden, the brakes got warmed up, and then it was so cool because you could charge really hard in, chop the gas, and then the engine braking is a little bit more than the modern 450, so that helped you turn as well. It was actually quite cool. Like once I got my head around how to ride it, I actually really had a good day, enjoyed riding it.
Kind of suspension and handling, what did you feel that was like out there?
You know, like anyone that knows me knows how much I enjoy riding the old bikes, and the reason I enjoy them is because like I like a really planted feel on a bike. Like I like to be quite close to the ground, and I really like to trust my front end. You sit in these bikes, you know, like the modern bikes, I feel like even when I go back on you sit on top of the bike. So, you know, like the position where you sit on the bike is really comfortable, and I think that helps really through the turns and stuff, where you can really get your weight through the bike and turn it how you want to. Suspension wise, obviously, like we had a smooth track today. I found like a bit of a slap on the front. I couldn't figure out whether it was too hard or too soft, but you know, like it's something that you could get on clickers, or if you had a day to kind of adjust and stuff. But overall, you know, like you could see how we were doing the corners, like I could get the bike to two-wheel slide and keep the gas on the whole way around, you know. So the bike had a real planted feel, where for me personally, where I like that low feel and that sitting in the bike feel, it was, yeah, really comfortable for me.
Can you see where all the hype was back in 1998 when this bike came out? Can you see why that hype was there? And lastly, did you have fun? Did you have fun on it?
Well, on to the second part first, I had an awesome day. Like, so much fun, you know, just to get the opportunity to ride these old bikes and stuff is always fun. And then kind of brings me back to my time, because obviously it brings back memories for me. And then obviously I'm a little bit more experienced and a better rider now than I was when I was 16 or 15 or however old I was. So to actually get the best out of the bikes, like I feel like I can get the best out of this bike now. So to test them where I still ride a bit now is pretty awesome. And what is the first part of the question? I've forgotten that already.
Can you see why this created so much hype back in the day?
So I can, but I think it took the average person a long time to learn to ride the four-stroke. You know, like when this bike came out, it wasn't like everyone jumped on this bike and smoked it, you know, like it took a long time for people to learn to ride the bike.
You've got the benefit of 20 years riding four-strokes now, yeah.
Like 10, 15 years, you know, so to go back to it, but definitely, you know, it was a game changer, and just changed motocross completely, you know, the way that the track's developed, the way that the racing is, just, you know, pretty much this bike is what changed the sport, you know. I don't know why, but I kind of think that this is better than the 426. Like, I think it was a 426 I'd ridden, and it didn't feel anything like, I don't know, so obviously it was a long time ago, but it didn't feel anything like this, you know. You know, like I remember riding that and thinking, Jesus, even like the noise of it and like the feeling of it was just so weird, but that was actually like a really enjoyable ride today.
Obviously this has been an absolute mint condition, immaculate condition, YZF 400. You're not going to find one of these laying about very often, are you? So big thanks to Martin Haggerty over there who's hooked us up for the day and let us ride his bike. One last thing to do today then, Nev. You're going to do a hot lap on this and a hot lap on your 125 to see if this can still murder a two-stroke. So off you go get changed. So we've stolen a ride on the bike that over 20 years ago supposedly killed the two-stroke. But we want to know once and for all, is the 400 truly a two-stroke killer? Nev is about to set off and do two hot laps, one on Martin's 1998 YZ 400F and one on his own 2018 YZ 125. To conclude this epic test, we're going to take it to the stopwatch. It's time to settle this once and for all. Is the 400 truly a two-stroke killer? Let's find out. Here we go then. This is the hot lap we've all been waiting for the whole video long. Can the 22-year-old YZ 400F which was a two-stroke killer back in the day, does it still have what it takes to defeat a modern day smoker? We're about to find out. Will the victor be team two-stroke or team four-stroke? Up the hill he goes, on the gas on both bikes, and the clock is on. 125 versus 400. 22 years difference between these bikes. Obviously two-stroke versus four-stroke. The track here today, very dry and slick. That could favour the four-stroke. Obviously Nev has spent a lot more time on his 125 here, so we'll see. It's looking very tight at the moment with 30 seconds on the clock. Up the hill, the drag race. The 400 might be strong up those hills. Putting the power down up the hills here at the track. Down he goes. Around, very slick. As I said before, it's still insanely tight between these two bikes. Like I said, 22 years difference, but the difference on track is very slight. Up the back straight he goes, then the longest straight on the track. It's a drag race. Neville Bradshaw versus Neville Bradshaw. 125 versus 400, and it's neck and neck still. It's still neck and neck. This is insane. I was not expecting this to be so tight. Here he comes round. A couple more corners to go. Penultimate corner now. At the top end of the circuit, will drop down one more time before he drags back up towards the finish. Here we are. Who's going to grab the win? Oh my god. The Yamaha YZ400F gets the win on the day. Look how tight that is. That is absolutely insane. 136.07 for the YZ400 and a 136.23 for the YZ125. 22 years and the YZ400F is still a two-stroke killer. As we've just seen, the 400 is still, to this day, a certified two-stroke killer. But even if it wasn't, the Yamaha YZ400F was a watershed moment in motocross. It's a bike that changed the game forever, and whether that's for the better or for the worse, depends on what side of the two-stroke versus four-stroke battle that you sit on. But no matter what, this bike earned its place in moto history, and I'm glad that we got to steal a ride. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this special film, make sure to like and share the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what other bikes you'd like us to steal a ride on. As always though, I've been Max, this has been 999 Laser. Until next time, I'll see you at the track. Thanks to Earpiece for supporting this video. As you guys will know, the transition from two-strokes to four-strokes made our sport a much louder place to be. Completely randomly, we even mentioned how noisy the 400 was in this video. 106 decibels. That really is ear-damaging stuff. In fact, anything over 85 dB can be harmful. In a sport where we try to protect our body as much as possible, it's amazing how many riders don't protect their ears whilst they're on the bike. So if you're looking for ear protection, Earpiece can help you out. They make top quality ear protection specifically designed for moto. If you want to protect your hearing in the long term, check the guys out. There's a link in the description down below. Thanks again to Earpiece for supporting this video. Okay, so here we got Martin Haggerty, the proud owner of this 1998 Yamaha YZ400F. Martin, just tell us a story about where the hell you found this thing in and how the hell it's in such good condition.
Yeah, that came up in sort of Mexicali, which is sort of south of San Diego, right on the Mexican borders. They were a little bit iffy about going to get it. Well, yeah, that was about 5 years ago. Yeah, so yeah, 2015. An old Mexican guy owned it, and I'd barely done a thing on it. I think when I got it, I'd probably done 2 hours, 3 hours. So I was over the moon when it came in. Yeah, it was great. It's just great to find things like that in original condition. You know, there are sort of plenty of bikes out there with new plastics and stickers and. You know, yeah, and you could tell when you, like Nev said, when you sit on it, you can tell it's a tight bike, you know, and it was. And yeah, we regassed the shock and did a few things to it, and nothing much, to be fair. Total before today then, how many hours do you reckon we're on this? Oh man, I reckon it's only done a maximum of 10 in its life. 10 hours in 22 years? Yeah, if that, yeah. But that's typical of the States. You'll find people who buy a bike, because they go trail riding for a bit of fun, and then yeah, don't enjoy it or scared or something happens. Yeah, and in the UK it would have had 54 owners and been ragged around the field by now, and it'd be in a box of bits. Whereas in America they don't behave like that. And then yeah, the guy decided to sell it, and yeah, which is a common story.
But were you on the hunt for a Yamaha 400, or did you just?
Yeah, no, I'm a bit random like that. Yeah, and I've just got.
It's always got your eye on a bike somewhere, or.
Yeah, I'm afraid I have. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the hoarding is a long. You know, those days are long gone.
Much to the wife's dismay, I should think.
Yeah, well, no, there you go. It's a passion, isn't it, and an interest. So you know, you've got to have something in life. Otherwise, you just sat on the sofa watching Coronation Street. You know, we don't want to go there, do we? So if I notice something that's interesting, then I thought it was a great find. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was, and we thank you a lot for keeping it in such immaculate condition and letting us have a go today. So we wouldn't be able to do this entire video without you, Martin. So thanks very much.
No, we'll try and get Nev to do a race on it, something random. You know, if he wants to. Yeah, okay, well thank you, great day.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah,
thanks again to Martin. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed this special video with the Yamaha YZF 400. I've been Max, I'll see you next time.